Welcome to Easy Learning zed-Mathematics. The future is bright. In this video, I'm going to go through Biology Paper 1 for GCE 2025. So I'm going to share with you answers, and I'm going to also go into details explaining the points. So I want you to watch this video up to the end, as I'm going to elaborate every option given. So I will be telling you why the answer is wrong, and I'll also be telling you why the answer is correct, the one I've chosen to be correct. So please watch this video up to the end as we go through this paper. With that being said, let's go to answering the questions. Come to question 1, which is as follows. A student used a light microscope to observe onion cells. The power of the ocular lens was 10x and the objective lens was 20x. The magnification of onion cell is, okay, so we need to find the magnification of the onion cells. Okay, so for us to find that, for us to find magnification, we need to understand that the formula for magnification is equal to ocular lens multiplied by, okay, ocular lens multiplied by objective lens, okay, which I'm going to say OB, objective. Okay, so that's what it is. That is the formula. So now let's look at the answers. So when you look at answer A, where we're given 10x, okay, so probably 10x would have been correct if the objective lens was 1. Okay, so that when we put ocular lens, which is 10 here, times 1, then will give us 10. So A could have been correct. Now, since the objective lens is 20 and ocular lens is 10, that means A is not correct. We come to B. B, 20x, okay, 20x is for objective lens. So this means that if we have got, let me do this. If we have got 20 on objective lens, and then we say times, this answer could have been correct if ocular lens was 1. Okay, so B is not correct because when we multiply 10 by 20, we're not going to get 20x. Okay, now when we come to C, which is 30, now if 30 has to be correct, and what I can tell from 30 is more or less like you don't know the formula for magnification. People can choose 30, others who don't know the formula for magnification. So they would think magnification is ocular lens plus objective lens, which is not true. When you put 10 plus 20 will give you 30. This could have been correct if we find the magnification of any cell by adding ocular lens and objective lens. Okay, we come to D, which is 20. So 20, using that formula, when you have got magnification is equal to ocular lens is 10, we put 10 here, times 20, which will give us 200. So 200x is correct. So D is correct. Okay, so basically that's how you come up to this answer. Now we come to question 2, which is what is the correct level of organization for the skin? What is the correct level organization of the skin? Okay, so among the 4 options were given: organ for A, B organelle, C system, D tissue. So okay, so how are these arranged? So first of all, what happens is this. An organelle is contained in a cell. A cell contains an organelle. Then a tissue. A cell is contained in a tissue. Then a tissue forms an organ. Okay. Then an organ, a group of organs, organelles are found in a cell. A cell forms cells that perform a specific function or similar task, forms a tissue. A tissues that performs similar functions forms an organ. organs that forms similar functions forms system. Okay, so the question is, what is the correct level of organization for the skin? So now a skin performs a task, okay, performs different tasks that are different. So the skin, when we look at the skin, we can say skin is considered as an organ. Okay, in fact, it's the largest organ in the human body. Okay, so that means what I can say about the skin is considered to be an organ because it is made up of multiple types of tissues working together to perform specific functions. That's why I consider skin as an organ. So skin is an organ. Some of the tissues that forms the skin are epithelial tissue, connectivity tissue, nerve tissues, as well as blood vessels. These, when we talk about these are tissues, and then they form an organ, which is a skin. They form a skin, which is considered as an organ. Okay, that's why you can see that the skin is able to perform these functions such as protection, temperature regulation, as well as sensation. In addition, there is also excretion. Okay, the skin performs these tasks. However, the skin is made of tissues like those I've talked about: epithelial tissues, connectivity tissues or connective tissues, nerve tissues, and blood vessels. Okay, now let's come to organelles. Now, organelles, these are small thin substances that are found in a cell. So when we look at the skin is bigger than these organelles. So B is not correct. Okay, these organelles are found in a cell. They are smallest thing. If you can't see the cell, then the organelles must be very small. Okay, then we look at the system. System is made of organs. So skin is just an organ. Okay, so the system will be made by organs. Then when we look at tissues are substances that forms an organ. These are tissues forms an organ. Okay, so basically, so the correct answer is A, as organs are formed by tissues and the skin is made of different tissues, like I said earlier on. Question 3. The following diagram shows a set up to demonstrate osmosis. The vixen tubing represent the plant cells. Okay, represent the plant cell. Okay, so now we have got diagrams A up to D. So A, we have got distilled water in vixen tubing and sugar in the beaker. B, we have got distilled water in the vixen tubing and distilled water in the beaker. We come to C. C, we have got distilled water in the beaker and sugar solution in the vixen tubing. Then we have got D, where we have sugar solution in the beaker as well as sugar solution in the vixen tubing. Okay, now we come to the actual question, which is down here, which is which setup would demonstrate plasmolysis? Which setup would demonstrate plasmolysis? Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what plasmolysis is. What is plasmolysis? What is plasmolysis? Okay, let's look at the definition of plasmolysis. Plasmolysis is a biological process that happens in plant cells when they lose water due to being placed in a hypertonic solution. Now, what is a hypertonic solution? A hypertonic solution is a solution with a higher concentration of solutes than inside the cell. Okay, so when you talk about solutes, these are like sugar, salt, okay, dissolved in water. Okay, so now these are hypertonic solutions. They will make the plant to lose water into their solution, okay, into the same solution. Okay, so now our next question is now, which of the 4 diagrams is representing plasmolysis? Okay, so Let me also tell you what happens when plasmolysis takes place. What happens during plasmolysis? Water moves out of the cell by osmosis from higher to lower water concentration. So if the environment has got lower concentration, that means lower concentration of water. That means the water in the plant will start going into the atmosphere or the surrounding, hence causing the plant to lose water. That's where wilting comes in. As water leaves the cytoplasm and central vacuum shrink. Okay, so when the water is coming from the plant, then the central part of the plant cell starts shrinking. Now we know that the inner parts of the cell has cytoplasm and vacuum. Okay, so now when water is being lost, the inner side starts shrinking. So the plasma membrane pull away from the rigid cell wall. The plasma membrane we are referring to there is the cell membrane start moving away from the cell wall. Okay, as it shrinks. Okay, this creates visible gaps between the cell wall and the shrinking protoplasm. Okay, shrinking protoplasm. So what I mean by protoplasm, I'm just referring to inner parts of the cell, the nucleus, the vacuole, the cytoplasm, all those, they shrink. Okay, so when they shrink, that means it brings the plant to, it leads the plants to wilt or not to be strong. Okay, now enough of that. Now let's go to the questions. Now let's go to the options here. Let's go to the options. So now let's look at sugar solution and distilled water. So let's focus on A. Now remember, we are told that the Vixen tubing represents the plants. This is the statement which is in the statement above. The Vixen tubing represents the plant cell. So meaning, what happens to the Vixen tubing when it is put in higher concentration of sugar solution? Okay, so when the distilled water inside the Vixen tubing in A is placed in the sugar solution, the water in the Vixen tube will start moving from the Vixen tube into the sugar solution. Hence, the Vixen tube will end up shrinking because it will lose all the water as it is going to be going outside the solution. Okay, until either maybe the solution becomes stable. That is what we call equilibrium. The equal solution is until we attain equal solution. Now, if that doesn't happen, that means it will shrink. Now, when it shrink, that is plasmolysis. Now, that process that is taking place in A, that is called plasmolysis. The losing of water from the plant into the surrounding, that is plasmolysis. B, distilled water in the Vixen tubing and distilled water in the beaker. This won't prompt any loss of water or movement of water because all they have got the same solution. Okay, they are distilled water. That means the water won't move from anywhere to anywhere, so they will be just stable. Okay, C, we have got sugar solution in Vixen tube and distilled water in the beaker. This shows that the water will be going into Vixen tube, so there will be no shrinking. That is not plasmolysis. However, that is called diplasmolysis. Diplasmolysis. That is the reverse of plasmolysis. Okay, where now the water will start expanding. There will be a lot of water. The plants will absorb a lot of water and expand. Okay, so that is what is called diplasmolysis. Okay, so now we come to D, where we have got sugar solution and sugar solution. D and B, they are similar in nature, even though we are using D solution in B pure water. The correct answer, these are similar. They won't provoke any movement of water in one direction. If movement of water will occur, that means it will be in both direction. Okay, so there will be no plasmolysis or diplasmolysis. Okay, basically those are the answers. The correct answer is A. Question 4 is as follows. Which of the following shows the correct region of action and conditions for the enzyme trypsin. Which of the following shows the correct region of action and condition for the enzyme trypsin? Okay, so let's look at the condition. We have got region where we have got region where we have region of action. We have got helium on A, then we have got also helium on B, and stomach as well as D, stomach. Conditions, we have got acidic on A, alkaline on B, acidic on C, alkaline on D. So our question is, which of the following shows the correct region of action and condition for enzymes trypsin? Okay, so let's talk about trypsin, the enzyme trypsin. Okay, so let me just give you a brief explanation on trypsin. Trypsin is a digestive enzyme that breaks down proteins into smaller peptides. Okay, so it is produced in the pancreas and released in a small intestine, specifically in the duodenum and ileum. Trypsin works best in alkaline environment, pH around 8, which is created by the bile and pancreatic juice. Okay, so what we can say is trypsin is secreted in the duodenum and ileum. That means stomach, any answer that has got stomach as a region of action is wrong. So we can forget about C and D. Okay, then I have also told you that trypsin works best in an alkaline environment. Okay, so which between A and B, which option has got condition which is alkaline? So we can see that B has the condition which is alkaline. So the correct answer is B. Okay, C is not correct because we are talking about trypsin being working in the stomach, working from the stomach. That is not true. So the correct answer is B. A could have been correct if the conditions were alkaline. Now, just because it's acidic, then the answer is wrong. Question 5, which is 4 solutions were tested for the presence of protein, starch, and glucose. The following table shows the results obtained. Which result shows presence of protein and glucose but not starch? Okay, so here what we are looking for is we are looking for an answer that demonstrates that proteins, when tested for, when we had carried the test for proteins, the result we got was positive for protein. The result was showing that protein was present and starch wasn't present. Then, as well as Benedict solution indicated that glucose was present. Okay, so let me talk about these tests first. Let me talk about Bulleit test. Bulleit test is used to test for protein, is used to test the presence of protein. So when the results, when protein is present, the end result turns into purple. The color we obtain is purple. Then when protein is absent, blue is the color that we get at the end. Okay. Iodine solution is used to test for starch. When starch is present, the solution turns blue-black. That means starch is present. When starch is not present, brown, or the iodine solution remain brown. Okay, that means starch is not present. Then Benedict test, that is Benedict test is used to test for glucose or reducing sugar. So when at the end of the test we get the orange color, that means glucose is present. That means glucose is present. Okay, so now we can go ahead and look at the options that are given. We know that on Bulleit test we are looking for purple color. That indicates that protein is present. So when we look at option A, we have got blue color. That means starch is not present. When you look at iodine solution, we have got iodine test, sorry, not solution, iodine test, we have got brown. That means starch is not present. When you look at Benedict's test, we will see that we have orange color. That means glucose is present. So you can see that the two options are okay, but the first option, which is for butyrate, which is blue, that is the one that made the answer wrong. Now we come to option B. We have got blue, which is not true. We want to have the presence, the solution should have the presence of protein. So we are saying B, blue, is making the answer to be wrong. Again, on iodine test, we are told that the solution turned blue black. That means starch was present. This also is making the answer to be wrong, because in the statement we asked to find a solution that shows the presence of protein, glucose, and the absence of starch. So since B is showing the presence of starch, that means it's wrong. Again, on Benedict, it meant blue. That means that is wrong. When glucose is present, when reducing sugar is present, the color we obtain is orange. So all the options on B were wrong. They are the opposite of what we needed. C, we have got purple color. Yes, that means protein is present. Then we have got brown. That means starch is absent. Correct. Then we have orange. That means glucose is present. Correct. Okay, so this is the correct answer, C. When you look at D, purple color, yes. Blue black, no. And blue here, no. So the correct answer is C. Okay, if you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section, but basically that's how we go about this question. Which of the following nutrition disorder can be caused by lack of calcium in diet? Okay, so we have got different nutritional disorders. Okay, so we have A, which is constipation. Constipation is caused by lack of fibers. Constipation is caused by lack of fibers. Okay, lack of fiber will cause constipation. Okay, when we look at B, which is heart disease, what causes heart disease? Okay, there are so many causes of heart diseases. Some of these causes are like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, and poor diet. Okay, so now I'm going to write here poor diet, because poor diet, this, what I mean by poor diet, just even more intake of cholesterol, that is already poor diet. In my own definition, please, HE teachers, if you are listening to this, please, I'm not trying, I'm just talking about causes of heart diseases. So just having a lot of cholesterol, foods with high cholesterol, that means it's already poor diet. Okay, high blood pressure, okay, as well as smoking, those can be habitual thing, and poor diet comes out here mainly. Okay, so poor diet will be the main cause of heart disease, where even the higher intake of cholesterol is engulfed. Okay, now we come to leakates. Leakates is caused by lack of calcium. Okay, lack of calcium. However, calcium is easily absorbed if someone has got vitamin D. Okay, vitamin D. So lack of vitamin D will lead to poor calcium intake or absorption, which will cause leakates. Okay, which will cause what? Leakates. Okay, so now the question is, which of the following nutrition disorder can be caused by lack of calcium? Definitely, we have found our answer to be C. Okay, so I'm saying lack of calcium will cause leakage. Now, where does vitamin D comes in? So poor intake of or lack of vitamin D will lead to poor absorption of calcium. So vitamin D helps in absorbing calcium. Okay, So we go to option D, which is scurvy. So scurvy results from lack of vitamin C. So scurvy is a nutrition disorder caused by lack of vitamin C. So if you lack vitamin C, you will be likely to suffer from scurvy. Okay, come to question 7, which is this diagram shows the shapes of the cells in a section of a leaf. Okay, so you can take time and start the diagram before even to go to the actual question. Okay, so we can identify this part H as upper epidermis. Okay, and this is parasite cells. Okay. These we can call them as guard cells. These we can identify them as guard cells. Okay, or we can call it guard cell since it's one. And this is spongy mesophyll. This is sponge mesophyll. Okay, mesophyll. Okay, so now I have identified those parts. Okay, so the question is when we go to the actual question, it's asking us which cells contain chloroplast. Okay, so for us to answer this question, we need to identify which cells in the leaf structure typically contain chloroplast. Okay, the organelles responsible for photosynthesis, that's what we need to find. Okay, these for photosynthesis to take place, chloroplast should be there. Now chloroplast contains chlorophyll. Okay, so that now chlorophyll traps sunlight in order to facilitate photosynthesis. Now the cells that contains chlorophyll or chloroplast are these. One, parasite cells. Okay, these they also contain chlorophyll. So these ones, so the ones I'm ticking are the ones that contains chlorophyll. The other one is sponge mesophyll. These they contain chlorophyll, as well as the guard cells, they contain chlorophyll. So now these are the three cells that contains, three types of cells that contains chlorophyll. So where do we see this combination of answers on the options? We will see that it's C. Okay, we see that C contains I, J, and K. Okay, these are the cells that contains chlorophyll. Okay, basically if you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section. So far, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also you like this video so that you don't miss any video in future. We come to question 8, which is the diagram shows the structure of Rhizopus. The diagram shows the structure of Rhizopus. Okay, so you can take time and look at the structure of Rhizopus. Okay, now once we have studied, what we need to do is we also need to make sure we understand the parts, so we know that this one has got the parts that are labeled by letters. We have got L. What is L? Okay, L is called L is called sporangiophore. Okay, sporangiophore. Okay, then the M is called substrate. Okay, M is called substrate. Okay, those are the parts that we need to pay attention to. Always when you're answering questions, you need to first identify those parts that are labeled by letters. Okay, but don't waste time if they are confusing you, because sometimes the actual question may give you the hint on the name of that part. Okay, so we come to the actual question, which is down here, which is identify the labeled structures L and M. Okay, which you have done. So when we look at L, we said L is sporangiophore, so meaning A and B are not answers, are not the correct answers. So we focus on C and D. So when we look at C and D, we can see that C, L is called sporangiophore, and M is called substrate. So the correct answer is C, substrate and sporangiophore. Okay. D, we have got sporangiophore, which is for L, which is correct, but hypha for M, that is not correct. So the correct answer is C. Okay, the correct answer is C. We come to question 9, which is which two characteristics in the diagram could be used to identify the tooth having dash? Okay, having this dash. A sharp chisel shape and one root. B, a sharp chisel shape and two roots. C, ridges and one root. D, ridges and two roots. Okay, so first of all, we should understand that this is a molar. So question 9, that is the diagram shows a molar. So we should understand what a molar is. So what is a molar? Okay, so we can say molars are the large flat teeth at the back of the mouth. Their main job is grinding and chewing food. They have broad surface with ridges and usually multiple roots to anchor them firmly. Okay, that is what I can talk about molars. Okay, so now when you look at this one, it's a molar, so it has got ridges and multiple roots. Okay, there we can see two of them. Okay, so when you look at the first option, which is A, sharp chisel shape and one root, already that answer is not correct. Over the roots, it has got two roots. You can see two roots there, but for that option they're saying one. That is not correct. This has not to do with anything. This is just the matter of observing the diagram, and then you can come up with a correct answer. B, sharp chisel shape and two roots. Two roots correct, but is the surface sharp like a chisel? No, it's not like a chisel. It's flat. It just have ridges. So that one, B is also not correct. When it comes to C, ridges, which is correct, that teeth has got ridges. That tooth has got ridges. We come to, it has got ridges, but it has one root. It's not correct. You can see two roots there. D, ridges and two roots. That is correct. So the correct answer is D, ridges and two roots. Question 10. Which of the following is energy-rich carbohydrate stored in the liver and muscle cells? Which of the following is an energy-rich carbohydrate stored in the liver and muscle cell? Okay, so first of all, we have got option A, which is cellulose, B, glucose, C, glycogen, D, starch. Okay, so let's define what cellulose is. What is cellulose? Which is option A. We are saying cellulose is a complex carbohydrate made of glucose unit. Function: provides structural support in plant cell walls. So this means that cellulose is found in plant cell. Do we have cellulose in as humans or as animals? Do we have cellulose? No, we cannot digest cellulose. It acts as a dietary fiber. So if we eat anything that contains cellulose, it becomes fiber to us. We can't digest it. Okay. Let's talk about energy giving. Can it give us energy? No. It's not energy storage. Sorry, not giving. Energy storage. It's not energy storage. We cannot store energy in form of cellulose. Okay, if we did, it would become a fiber to us. We can't digest it, and it cannot be easily available when it's needed, as we cannot digest it. So we can't store energy in cellulose form. Okay, we come to B, which is glucose. What is glucose? Glucose is a simple sugar, which is also called monosaccharide, a prime fuel for cells. So glucose is a simple sugar known as monosaccharide. which is also a primary fuel for our cells. So it is readily available to use glucose. Function: it circulates in the blood and it is used immediately for energy, like I said earlier on. Storage: you cannot store glucose. Okay, so glucose is readily available to be used by cells in our human body, so it cannot be easily stored. Okay, for it to be stored, it has to be converted into another form of energy. Okay, which is the correct answer, which is going to be the correct answer. Now let's look at option C, which is glycogen. Okay, what is glycogen? So glycogen is highly branched polysaccharide made of glucose units. So when glucose units come together, they form glycogen. Okay, now what is the function of glycogen? The function of glycogen is to store carbohydrate in the liver and muscle cell as a quick access energy reserve. Okay, so when we don't have enough energy in our body, then glycogen will be broken down into glucose and then provide energy to the body. Okay, so in the liver, glycogen maintains blood sugar level. So when it's stored in the liver, so that if there is excess energy or glucose in the body, it's stored under liver and then maintains the sugar level in the body. In the muscles, it fuels muscles activities during exercise. So when glucose is stored in the muscles in form of glycogen, when someone is doing exercise, then that energy is being used. Okay, can energy be stored as glycogen? Yes, it is the main short-term energy storage for carbohydrate. So the correct answer is C, which is glycogen. Okay, now when we talk about starch, let's talk about starch before we go to the next question, which is question 11. Okay, when you talk about starch, what is starch? Starch is a storage of carbohydrate found in plants. Okay, so also starch is stored in plants like potatoes, maize. Those are some of the examples where starch is stored. Okay, so when you're eating maize grain, that means we are eating the energy that has been stored by the plants. We are eating potatoes, that is the energy stored by the plants. Okay, function. So function is plant uses it to store energy. So energy in plants or carbohydrates in plants is stored in form of starch. In humans, we digest starch into glucose for energy. So like I said earlier on, cellulose cannot be digested, but starch can be digested into glucose and is used by us as energy. Stored in body? No, we can't store starch in our body. No. Okay, so the correct answer is C. We come to question 11. Question 11 is as follows. Which of the following is a characteristic of emphysema? Which of the following is the characteristic of emphysema? Okay, so first of all, before we even go to the options, what is emphysema? What is emphysema? So I'm going to talk about emphysema a bit, then later on we'll go to the options, then we'll pick the correct answer from there. Okay, emphysema is a chronic lung disease that damages the ovary, the thin air sac in the lungs, responsible for gas exchange. When these sacs breaks down, breathing becomes difficult and less oxygen reaches the bloodstream. Okay, so I've talked about emphysema. Now I've described what emphysema is. It is a chronic lung cancer or lung disease, not cancer, sorry, lung disease that damages the ovary. That's the attack. So the question is, which of the following is a characteristic of emphysema? A, constriction of bronchioles. D, destruction of ovary. C, growth of tumor in lungs. D, inflammation of bronchioles. Okay, now let's talk about the constriction of bronchioles. Okay, constriction of bronchioles. What do you think? Is that an answer? Is what we are told? Okay, bronchioles are small airways that carry air to the alveoli. Okay, so constriction happens in condition like asthma, where muscles around the bronchioles tighten. So this description of the disease in A, which is constriction of bronchioles, this one is a symptom of asthma. Okay, it's a symptom of asthma. Okay, now when you look at B, which is destruction of alveoli, this is the characteristic of emphysema. Okay, because when I told you, when I described emphysema, you and me discovered that emphysema destroys alveoli. So the correct answer is B. Okay, let's go to C. Which one do you think is the correct? Which one is the disease that causes growth of tumor in the lungs? Okay, tumors are associated with lung cancer, not emphysema. Emphysema is non-cancerous condition caused mainly by smoking or long-term exposure to irritants. Okay, so if we have a growth of tumors in lungs, that could be cancer. Okay, cancer of the lung. Okay, then when you look at D, inflammation of bronchial. So bronchioles, this is typical of bronchitis. So this is the symptom of bronchitis. Okay, this is the symptom of bronchitis. Okay, I hope you have got pen and paper to write this. Please, I'm taking time to go through all the options because I know what is maybe a wrong answer in this paper might be the correct answer. Maybe they will ask you to say which of the following is the characteristic of asthma, and the same options comes, or different ones, but there will be that option for asthma. So you should be able to get that answer correct. Okay, if you are so far you're liking what you are doing, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also invite your friends to follow us, to subscribe and like this video and share with your friend. The other news I have for you guys is that I have created a WhatsApp group where I'm adding grade 12s only, where I share PDF where I've solved these questions, not only for biology and also for other subjects. So please, if you want to be part and parcel of these wonderful groups I've formed, please make sure subscribe to my YouTube channel, and make sure you send me a message on WhatsApp and I'll add you to the group. Okay, I'm adding only serious ones. I don't want just people who want to add the number. It's better I have WhatsApp with 10 serious students. That's what I want, so that we can together prepare for the exams. We come to question 12, which is which of the following elements has a great role in energy storage and transfer in living organism? Okay, so which of the following elements has a greater role in energy storage and transfer in living organisms? Okay, so we have got A, calcium, B, magnesium, C, oxygen, D, phosphorus. Okay, so which one is the correct answer? Okay, let's start with the A. Let's talk about A, calcium. What is the function of calcium? What is the main role of calcium? Calcium builds bones and teeth, helps with muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and blood clotting. That is the function of calcium. It is stored in bones and released when needed, but it is not directly involved in energy transfer. So this answer is not correct. A. Calcium is just there to make our bones strong. Let's talk about magnesium. B, magnesium. What is the role of magnesium? Magnesium acts as a cofactor for many enzymes, including those involved in ATP production. It helps in stabilizing ATP, but not the energy carrier itself. So this answer is also not correct. Let's go to C, which is oxygen. What is the law of oxygen? Oxygen is used in cellular respiration to release energy from glucose. So oxygen is used for respiration. Oxygen helps generate energy, but it's not storage molecule, so it does not store energy. Oxygen does not store energy, so as well oxygen is not a correct answer. So if oxygen, magnesium, calcium are not correct, therefore it leaves us with one option, which is D, phosphorus. Phosphorus, what is the main role of phosphorus? Phosphorus is a key component of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, okay, the molecule that stores and transfer energy in the cell. So phosphorus is a key component of ATP. It is also found in DNA, RNA, and phospholipids, which make up cell membranes. Without phosphorus, cells couldn't power reaction or build genetic materials. So the correct answer is D. It is essential for energy transfer and storage. So the correct answer is D. We come to question 13, which is as follows. Which of the following diseases is caused by Schistosoma? Which of the following diseases is caused by Schistosoma? Okay, so AIDS. Okay, let's talk about AIDS. What causes AIDS? Okay, AIDS is brought about by HIV virus. So HIV virus is the cause of it. Weakens the immune system, making the body vulnerable to infections. So HIV is not really a disease, but it's a condition at which the body cannot fight the diseases, cannot fight against diseases. Okay, now let's look at B. Okay, let's look at B. So what is B? B is biohazard. Okay, what can we say about biohazard? What is biohazard? Okay, biohazard is also known as Schistosomasis. Okay, it's also called as Schistosomasis. This is a disease caused by parasitic worms of the genus Schistosoma. Okay, people with the biohazard, they get infected by swimming or wading in contaminated fresh water where infection snails released larvae. How do you know that you have got biohazard? Symptoms like abdominal pain, blood in urine and stool, and organ damage if untreated. So if you leave biohazard untreated, then you are going to even have organs destroyed. So when you look at the cause of biohazard, the way I've said it, the correct answer is B. Okay, now let's look at the question C. Let's look at C before we go to question 14. Let's look at the option C. So C and D. Let's talk about cholera, because we don't know what will come in an exam and we are preparing. So what causes cholera? So cholera is caused by a bacterium, Vibrio cholerae. Okay, it spread through contaminated water or food, leading to severe diarrhea and dehydration. So it is not caused by Schistosoma. Okay, so cholera is not also correct. Okay, we talk about tuberculosis. Okay, let's talk about tuberculosis, which is abbreviated as TB. TB is caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, this is the bacterium that causes tuberculosis, which is called the bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, so that's the name of the bacteria that causes TB. It mainly affects the lungs and spread through airborne droplets. Okay, so if someone has got TB and is coughing carelessly, it is easier for people around him to get tuberculosis. Okay, so the correct answer, like I said earlier on, is B, as I have indicated. Question 14. what type of immunity do babies obtain from the mother through breastfeeding? What type of immunity do babies obtain from the mother through breastfeeding? A. Artificial active immunity. B. Artificial passive immunity. C. Natural active immunity. D. Natural passive immunity. Okay, so now what we have here before us is to understand what artificial active immunity is and what artificial passive immunity is, as well as what natural active immunity is and what is natural passive immunity is. So let's start with A, which is artificial passive active immunity. So what is artificial active immunity? So artificial active immunity is developed after receiving a vaccination. Okay, so that is now like we have been vaccinated for cholera. We are once vaccinated for polio. So this vaccination is called artificial active immunity. How it works? How does it work? So what happens is this: the body is exposed to a harmless form of a pathogen and produce its own antibodies. So we are given a dormant virus or bacteria of that disease, and then when we take it in, the body will sense the presence of that bacteria. Then it will develop its own antibodies which will fight that inactive bacteria. Okay, so this one is not correct. The mother is breastfeeding, not vaccinating. Okay, so that means that one is not correct. So breastfeeding a child won't give the child artificial active immunity. Let's look at B, which is artificial passive immunity. What is artificial passive immunity? So the definition for artificial passive immunity is when a person is given ready-made antibodies through an injection, e.g. antivenom or monoclonal antibodies. These they will lead to a person having a passive immunity. So when you're given or introduced to that, then that is. Now, how does it work? That one works temporarily. It's a protection without the body making its own antibodies. Now, let's take, for instance, if someone is bitten by a snake and is given antivenom, okay, then that person gets healed. That doesn't mean that the person, if he's bitten again by the same snake, the same type of snake, he won't die from that bite. He or she may die even if he first time was vaccinated against or was given antivenom for that poison from that snake. Okay, that is only temporarily. So that one is not also it's not the kind of immune system that comes from the mother when the baby is being breastfed. Okay, let's go to C, which is natural active immunity. Okay, definition for natural active immunity is immunity developed after natural exposure to a disease. Okay, so how does that work? The body fights off the infection and remember how to respond in the future. So, for instance, you are sick. I've heard of people who talk about how they survived from cholera, and then people say, then you can never be sick from the disease of cholera because you were once sick. I don't know if it's on the instance of cholera, but I've heard of people speaking like that. So what happens when you get sick of a certain disease, the body develops the defensive mechanism for that disease, then you have now natural active immunity. So for the future attack of the same disease, that means you cannot be affected. Now, here in this scenario, we are told that the question is, what type of immunity do babies obtain from the mother through breastfeeding? So, C, natural active immunity, that is also not applying there, because natural passive immunity is when you get sick and active immunity. Natural active immunity is when you get sick and then you fight the disease for the first time, and then the body develop a defensive mechanism for that disease. Then in future you fight the disease back again if you are attacked. Okay, so we come to D. So we're saying C is also not correct, leaving us with D. So let's see D. It might be also D wrong, then this will be free mark. Let's see what D has for us. Natural passive immunity. Definition: this is when a baby receives ready-made antibodies from the mother. Okay, so the child receives already made antibodies from the mother. So how does this even happen? How it happens is like this. Before birth, antibodies will pass through the placenta. So from the mother, the antibodies will pass through the placenta into the baby, and then the baby will develop immunity in her body or his body. Now, after birth, this happens through breastfeeding, especially colostrum, the first milk that is given to the child, contains immunoglobulin and other protective substances. Okay, so basically that is how it happens. Okay, so what is the function of natural passive immunity? So these antibodies protects the baby from infections where their own immune system is still developed. Okay, so whatever is coming from the mother is just there to protect the child temporarily. So there is a task ahead of the child to develop her own or his own defensive mechanism. So that is what will happen. So the child, the child develops or is about to develop the defensive or immunity on for her own or his own, then the child will be using the mother's immunity. Okay, so this is natural and it's not man-made, so that's why it is called natural passive immunity. So this is the correct answer is D. D is the correct answer. Okay, if you have got questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section, and basically that's how I can go about that one. We come to question 15, which is the diagram shows the stem of a plant whose bark has been removed. So we can study the diagram. Once we have studied the diagram, then we can go to the actual question, which is how is transport in the plant affected? How is transport in the plant affected? So what has been cut is just the bark of the tree that has been removed. So how is transport removed? So before we go even to the options, let me talk about the transport of this transportation in plant. Let me talk about transportation in plant. Okay, so let me talk about first phloem. Phloem is found in the bark. It transports amino acids and sucrose, products of photosynthesis, from leaves to the parts of the plant, like roots, stems, like that. Okay, now there is also xylem found deep in the stem. It transports water from the roots to the leaves. So I don't know if you have ever cut a tree, a fresh tree, and if you have observed there is water that comes in the middle of the tree. It's because that's where the xylem is, and the function of the xylem is to carry water from the roots to the leaves, okay, or parts of the plant to other parts of the plant. Okay, so the actual question is, we asked how is transport in the plant affected? So when the bark is removed, phloem is disrupted, but xylem remains intact. That's what is happening there. Okay, the only thing that is interrupted is phloem. Xylem is intact. Okay, so now let's go to option A, which is amino acids and sucrose cannot pass to the leaves. Okay, what do you think of this answer? Is it correct? Okay, let's look at this. The question, the answer is saying amino acid and sucrose cannot pass to the leaves. Do amino acids and sucrose come from the leaves? No. So this answer is not correct. These substances are made in the leaves and move away from them, not towards them. So sucrose and amino acid, they move from the leaves to the other parts of the plants. So just saying amino acid and sucrose cannot pass to the leaves, that's where the answer is wrong. That's where option A is wrong. When we look at B, amino acids and sucrose cannot pass to the roots. This one is correct because amino acids and sucrose are made in the leaves. So they move from the leaves to the parts of the plants, not leaves. So it can even go into the roots. It's correct. So B is a suspect. It's a suspect answer to be correct. However, let's look at C. C, we are told water cannot pass to the leaves. Is that true? Is it the xylem that is affected or phloem? What is affected is phloem, that is disrupted. So water, the movement of water is uninterrupted. The movement of water is uninterrupted. So that is not correct. D, water cannot pass to the roots. I'm not even worried about the parts where they are talking about water cannot be moved, because the xylem is not the one that is affected. It's not the one that is interrupted. So these C and D immediately are talking about the movement of water. That disqualifies them as answers, because xylem is not the one which is disrupted. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. Okay, we come to question 16, which is the diagram shows blood and its composition. Which component of blood represents the fungal site? Okay, the diagram shows blood and its composition. Which component of blood represents the fungal site? Okay, phagocytes are represented by which elements there? So what we can do is we take time and start the diagram. Now once we have started the diagram, then we can go and answer the actual question. So now before we answer the question, let's have a quick reminder about phagocytes. So phagocytes are a type of white blood cells that protect the body by engulfing harmful bacteria, dead cells, and debris. Okay, so in the diagram we have seen this. So most of the time when a diagram is drawn, the most biggest cells that are shown and they are mostly transparent are phagocytes. So in here we can tell that D is phagocytes. D is phagocytes. Okay, it's phagocyte. Okay, then when we come to D, that is phagocyte. Now we have identified D. Now what are these other parts? So when you come to A, these ones we can call them as these ones that are A. Apart from those phagocytes, what is A? Okay, what are those parts A called? Okay, so we have got A, we can tell that these are platelets. Okay, these are platelets. Then B, that is plasma. C, these are red blood cells. Red blood cells, and we can also call them as erythrocytes. Okay, the other name for red blood cells, erythrocytes. Okay, so now the question is, the diagram shows blood and its composition. Which component of blood represents the phagocytes? So the correct answer is D. The correct answer is D. Okay, please, if you have got any comment on this question, please, I'll be glad to hear from you if you have anything to add or subtract. And basically that's how you go about it. Please, grade 12s out there, I've created a WhatsApp where I'll be sharing you PDF documents, those that are answering questions. A grade 12 paper, will go through it and then come up with the answers and explanations. So we are making those PDFs. So please make sure you join our WhatsApp group. Please, it's free of charge. We're just revising. Our intention is to make sure that you do well in the final exam. So make sure you send me a WhatsApp message on my WhatsApp on 0955102713. Then I'll respond to you and I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. We come to question 17, which is as follows. Which chamber of the heart would be the first to receive nicotine absorbed in the blood in the lungs of a cigarette smoker? Which chamber of the heart would be the first to receive nicotine absorbed in the blood in the lungs of a cigarette smoker? Okay, so we have got option A, which is left atrium, B, left ventricle, C, right atrium, D, right ventricle. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what happens. How does blood moves from the lungs to the heart? Okay, so first what happens is nicotine is absorbed in the lungs. Then nicotine enters the pulmonary capillaries in the lungs. From there, it travels through the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood, now contains nicotine, to the left atrium of the heart. To the left atrium of the heart. So the blood from the lungs will go straight to the left atrium of the heart. So the correct answer is A. Okay, A is the correct answer. Okay, so what happens is what I've explained to you already. That is the movement of blood. Okay, so when you talk about left ventricle, the blood goes to the left ventricle after passing through the left atrium. It's the second stop, not the first. So the left ventricle is the second stop. So from in the heart, from the left atrium to the left ventricle. Now, when you talk about right atrium, the right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the parts of the body and not from the lungs. So that means nicotine enters the lungs. So this chamber isn't even involved at that point. So which means nicotine could have gone to other parts of the body before it comes to the right atrium. Okay, then right ventricle, this chamber pumps blood to the lungs, not from the lungs. So that means nicotine has already passed through the lungs and it has gone to the other parts of the body, and then the blood is coming back from the right ventricle to the lungs again. So the correct answer is A. If you have got questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. Otherwise, that is the correct answer. We come to question 18, which is as follows. The diagram shows a kidney and blood vessels associated with it. Okay, so we can take time and study the diagram. Then we can go now to the statements that are labeled, that are numbered 1 to 3. 1. Vessel X contains more urea than Y. Vessel Y contains urine. Vessel X contains more oxygen than Y. Okay, so now let's first identify the vessels. We can see that this vessel is taking blood to the bladder. Okay, so this one is likely to be renal artery. Okay, it's likely to be renal artery. Then Y is likely to be renal vein. Now remember, these are renal veins. Okay, remember these are vessels. Okay, they are blood vessels. Okay, so now the statement here, when the blood is coming to the bladder, it has higher concentration of the urea. When it's leaving, the blood has absorbed a lot of urea, and when it's leaving, it is leaving without with less or without urea. Okay, so that's what happens. Okay, so now when you look at the statement 1, we are told to say X vessel, the renal artery, contains more urea than Y. That is true. That is very true. Okay. 2. Vessel Y contains urine. No, Y does not contain urine. In fact, it has left all the urea component of urine in the bladder. So as it is going back, it has less urea. 3. Vessel X contains more oxygen than Y. Okay, this one is true because as the blood is coming to the bladder, it also carries oxygen, which it leaves to the bladder cells. Okay, then the bladder cells will use the oxygen, okay, for respiration. Then that is also true. Okay, so that means the statement 1 and 3 are correct. Therefore, B is the correct answer. B is the correct answer. A is correct, but partially correct because it does not have the other component, which is true, which is 3. Okay, but C is not correct because 2 is not correct. It's not true. Then 3 is correct. D, which is saying 3 is correct, but it's not the only statement that is true. 1 and 3 are true. So the correct answer should contain 1 and 3. So the correct answer is B. We come to question 20, which is what changes takes place to the diameter of arterioles near the skin and urine production in the kidneys when core temperature of the body increases above normal. Okay, so if the temperature of the human body increases above normal, what happens to the arteriole near the skin and urine production in the kidney? Okay, so let's look at A. We have, first of all, let's look at this table. We have got the diameter of arterial urine production. So first of all, let's talk about when core temperature rises, what happens? The body tries to cool down. So immediately there is high temperature in the body, what happens to the body is it wants to cool down. Okay, so how does it, what activities does it do for it to cool down? So what it does is this: it cool down itself by doing this. 1, widening arteriole near the skin. So when the arteriole near the skin opens up, that means there is loss of heat. Okay, so the opening up of the arteriole near the skin, which is also referred to as vasodilation, so that it releases heat. Okay, then the other thing is reducing urine production. So urine production reduces to conserve water for sweating. So the urine production is reduced so that we may lose urea through sweating, which will result into loss of heat. Okay, now let's look at option A, which we have. So now we have talked about diameter of arteriole increases, then the production of urine decreases. Now A is saying the diameter of arteriole decreases. So just this part is making the option A not to be correct. Okay, B again decreases, so again B is not correct. Okay, so B is totally opposite of each other. When look at diameter of arteriole decreases, production of urine increases. That is the opposite of the correct answer. C, the diameter of arteriole increases, correct, and the production of urine decreases. That is correct. So the correct answer is C. Okay, however, on D, increase of arteriole, the diameter of arteriole, correct. Increase of urine production, that is not correct. That is what is making this answer to be wrong. Okay, so the correct answer is C. Okay, so these things I'm saying is opposite of what is there. So this happens if the body is cold, okay, becomes more cold than normal, then a decrease of diameter of the arteriole is correct, and increase of urine production might be correct. Okay, so that is the correct answer. We go to the next question. We come to question 20, which is Which substance increases the blood sugar levels when a person is frightened? Which substance increases the blood sugar levels when a person is frightened? Okay, so we have got A, adrenaline, B, glucagon, C, insulin, D, thyroxine. Okay, so what really happens when a person is frightened? What happens when you are frightened is that your body prepares for action, learning, fighting, reacting. That's what really happens when you are frightened. It needs quick energy, so it releases blood sugar, glucose. This is triggered by adrenaline released from the adrenal glands. Okay, so this is what I can give you a brief summary of what happens when you are frightened. So when we look at the option A, which is basically from what I've given you, is the correct answer. So adrenaline releases is released, okay, during fear, stress, or excitement. Now, once adrenaline is released, it stimulates the breaking down of glycogen in the liver into glucose. Okay, so immediately adrenaline is released, it stimulates the breakdown of glycogen in the liver. That's where we talked there. That's what we said is where the sugar is kept in form of glycogen, and then it is broken down into glucose. Okay, this results into blood sugar increase rapidly to fuel muscles and brain activities. Okay, so the correct answer is A. Okay, however, when we talk about glucagon, this is partially correct but not the best answer here. Okay, glucagon also raises blood sugar, but it is released during low blood sugar, not emotional stress. So this one works when there is no emotional stress, but there is low sugar in the blood. Then it will invoke the release of sugar. Okay, it is a long-term regulator, not part-time of the immediate fear response. So the difference of adrenaline and glucagon is that glucagon is for a long term, okay, but adrenaline is just when there is fear. That's when it prompts the release of sugar into the bloodstream. Insulin lowers blood sugar by helping cells absorb glucose. So insulin is the opposite of what is being described here. So it is released when sugar is high, not during fear. Okay, that's what happens. Now, when we talk about thyroxine, thyroxine regulates metabolism over time. It does not directly or quickly releases blood sugar into the bloodstream, or even during fear. It doesn't do that. So the correct answer, like I said earlier on, is A. Okay, we come to question 21, which is the diagram shows part of the human brain, which part controls breathing rate and regulates blood pressure. Which part controls breathing rate and controls or regulates blood pressure? Okay, so let's look at these parts before we identify the part that performs that task. So A, that is cerebellum. Okay, so you can say A is cerebellum. Okay, B, that is hypothalamus. Okay, then we can see C, that is cerebellum. Okay, that is cerebellum. And D, that is medulla oblongata. oblongata. Okay, so now the actual question is, which one controls breathing rate and regulates blood pressure? Okay, let's start with A. Let's talk about cerebellum. Okay, what does cerebellum do? Okay, so he's saying cerebellum is responsible for thinking, memory, voluntary movements, and sensory processing. So cerebellum is in charge of voluntary activities such as raising your hand, let me touch something, let me move this way, let me move the head like this. So that is the function of cerebellum, is to control those activities. Okay, then let's talk about hypothalamus. It controls the body temperature and the hormones. Okay, it also controls hunger. Okay, so it regulates body temperature, hunger, and hormones. Okay, this one does not directly controls the breath rate. Okay, so this one hypothalamus controls body temperature, hunger, and hormones. Okay, now let's talk about the cerebellum. Okay, so cerebellum is the one that controls balance, coordination, and fine motor skills. So cerebellum controls balance, coordination, and fine skills. Okay, so that's a function of cerebellum. Okay, now let's look at D, which is medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata controls involuntary actions or functions like breath rate, heart rate, as well as blood pressure. Okay, these are controlled by medulla oblongata. Okay, so now which one is responsible for breath rate and blood pressure regulation? So the correct answer is D. The correct answer is D. Okay, if you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section. We come to question 22, which is, which part of the ear contains the smallest bone in the human bone known as oscus? Okay, so we have got those options: A, Eustachian tube; B, inner ear; C, middle ear; D, outer ear. Okay, now let's talk about these options. Let me describe these options, then together we can choose the correct answer. If you know the correct answer already, write it in the comment section. So what is Eustachian tube? Okay, so this is a narrow canal connecting the middle ear to the back of the throat, which is pharynx. Okay, pharynx. Okay, so the function is to equalize air pressure on both sides of the eardrum. Does it contain oscus? No, it does not contain oscus. So this one is not the correct answer. Now let's talk about inner ear. Okay, so when you talk about inner ear, what is inner ear? This is the deepest part of the ear, including the cochlea, semicircular canals, and the vestibule. Okay, the function of inner ear is, let's talk about cochlea, okay, or cochlea. Convert sound vibration into nerve signals. Okay, semicircular canals helps with the balance. So if they asked us to state the part that helps with the balancing, we could have said inner ear. Okay, then we come to C, which is middle ear. So middle ear, what is middle ear? The air-filled space between the eardrum and the inner ear. Okay, what is the function? Transmitting sound vibration from the eardrum to the inner ear. Okay, what does middle ear has? It contains the oscus, which are malleus, which is also called hammer, icus, then steps, which are also referred to as stairs. That is, the stairs is the smallest bone in the human body. Okay, stairs. So our question is, which part of the ear contains the smallest bone? So we can say the middle ear. Okay, even if we have found the answer, let's talk about D. What is D outer here? What is it and what is the function? So the outer ear, the visible part of the ear, that is also called pinna, and the ear canal. Okay, the function is correct sound waves and funnels them to the eardrum. Okay, so does it contain oscars? No, it contains no bones, so just cartridges and skin that makes the outer ear. So the correct answer is C on 22. We come to question 23, which is, which of the following pairs of bones form a hinge joint? Which of the following pairs of bones form a hinge joint? Okay, so let's look at this and these pairs, and then we talk about the kind of joints they form. So A, we have got humerus and fibula. Okay, so let's talk about humerus. Humerus is the upper arm bone, and fibula is the lower leg bone next to the tibia. These bones are completely in completely different ribs, so they are in different parts of the body, so no joint connects them. Okay, humerus and ulna. So let's talk about humerus and ulna. So humerus is the upper arm bone, and ulna is one of the two forearm bones. Okay, these two form the elbow joining. Sorry, these two form the elbow joint, which is a classic hinge joint, allowing flexion and extension of the arm. Okay, so we know that hinge joint gives us 180 degrees turn. Okay, we can straighten the hand. Okay, so that is the hinge joint, which is B is the correct answer. However, let's look at C, which is scapula and ulna. Now scapula, shoulder blade, and ulna, forearm bone. So now we can see that well, both are in the arm region, they don't directly articulate to form a hinge joint. The scapula connects to the humerus at the shoulder with a ball and socket joint, which can offer 180 degrees turn. Okay, so C is not correct. When we look at D, which is scapula and fibula, so we can see that as well, just like we talked about the scapula and the ulna, the same thing can be a scenario here. Okay, again, these bones are in different parts of the body. Scapula in the shoulder, fibula in the lower leg. So there is no connection. So there is no joint that exists between them. So D again is not correct. Okay, please, if you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section. There is a WhatsApp group that's going on. Question 24 is as follows. An experiment on the growth of a young plant shoot was set up as shown. Okay, so this is the setup for the young plant. As you can see, there is aluminium foil on the tip there. Then there is a shoot. Then there is a direction of light. So the question is, what will be the shoot look like after 48 hours? So there's a tip there. So what is this setup about? Let's talk about the setup. So a young plant shoot is exposed to light from one side, that is the right side. Okay, then the tip of the shoot is covered with aluminium foil, blocking light from reaching it. The tip is where enzyme growth hormones detect light and direct growth. So at the tip, that's where light is detected, and then the plant will grow towards the light from the tip of the plant. Now the question is, what will happen to the plant? So let's look at A. What is going to happen at A? Before I talk about A, let me talk about this. This means that if the tip is covered, the plant cannot detect light direction. Without light detection, oxygen don't do not redistribute, so the shoot grows straight upwards. So like I said earlier on, the tip here, the tip of the plant here, when I talk about the tip, I'm talking the top part of the plant. Is the one that detects the light. So if it is covered, that means there is no detection of light. So that means the plant won't bend in any direction. Okay, so what will happen is it will just grow straight, just as usual, as if there is no, the light is just coming from upwards. So it will just grow upright straight like that. So when you look at A is correct. According to what I've described, A is correct. Since the tip is covered, the shoot does not bend towards the light. So that means no phototropic response. So no phototropic response. That means correct answer is A. Okay. These others, they can't, these are false. Even growing shorter, that is not true. Okay. So it cannot bend to any direction. That's what we mean. So even B is not correct. Okay, it's not correct. And look at B, at least it can deceive you because it's bending towards the right. But C, this one, that means you don't, if you choose C, that means you don't understand the topic. And D as well. Okay, it's not even related. It's not any of the responses that can happen, even the conditions are favorable. We come to question 25. Question 25 is as follows. Which of the following legions of growth in roots involves an increase in the size of vacuole? The cell, okay, dash, the cell dash, okay. So let's look at what happens really first. Roots grow through three main legions. One, zone of cell division, that means new cells are made. Two, zone of elongation, that means cells grow longer, that is vacuole expands. Three, zone of differential or specialization. This cell takes on specific laws. So when they take on specific laws, they also grow according to the law they are going to play. Okay? So now let's look at A, which is differential. Okay? So what is differential? And the question is, which of the following legions of growth in roots involves an increase in the size of vacuole? Okay, so like I told you, like I have given you the summary of what really happens. So we are saying differential, this is where cell develops specialized function, e.g. root air cells for absorption. Okay, vacuole growth has already occurred before its stage. Okay, the growth of vacuole has already occurred before this stage. So there is nothing that is happening. Now, when you come to B, we'll look at division. Okay, under this division, this is the root tip where the cell actively divide. Okay, that is mitosis. Then the cell divides itself. Okay, cells are small and compact. Vacuoles are not expanded here. Okay, since there is division, there is no expansion of vacuole. Now, C, elongation. This is the zone where the cell increases in length. Vacuoles expand rapidly, pushing the cell to grow longer. This expansion is key to root growth. So, C so far is correct. Okay, the vacuole will expand so that the root air becomes longer. Okay, specialization. This one is also similar to D. I'm talking about D, specialization. This is similar to B. Okay, similar to differentiation. Okay, cells take on specific laws. Vacuole expansion is already complete by this stage. So again, D is not correct. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Okay, we come to question 26. The diagram shows a section through a dicotyledonous seed. Which structure? The diagram shows a section through a dicotyledonous seed. Which structure provides most of the nutrients needed for the seed to grow after germination? Okay, so first of all, we need to name these parts of the seed that we can see here. So one, we have got A, which we can call as cotyledon. Okay, cotyledon. So okay, then when we come to B, when you look at the part B, this is the one that will become a root. Okay, B will become a root. So what is B? So B is radical. B is radical. Okay, will become a root, and this is called radical. Okay, then when we come to C, C is going to become a shoot. So since C is going to become a shoot according to my observation, then that one can be plumule. Okay, that is okay. Then we look at D. What will be D? D, this one, D may be the coat, because when I look at the line that is pointing at this, it should be coat. So this one can even be called CD coat. Okay. Now the question is, what is a cotyledon? Okay. So when you look at A, which is also called as cotyledon, so A, which is called cotyledon, what is the function of A? It supplies nutrients to the growing embryo. In dicots, there are two cotyledons, and they contain starch, proteins, and oils needed for early growth. This is the main nutrient reservoir until the seedling can photosynthesis. So that is the function of cotyledon. Okay, so the question is, in the diagram shows a section through a dicotyledonous seed, which structure provides most of the nutrients needed for the seed to grow after germination. So the correct answer is A. Okay, since it's a revision, what is the function of radical? What is the function of radical? So the function of radical is the embryo root that grows downwards during germination. It is part of developing plant, not a nutrient source. So radical is not a nutrient source, but develops into roots. Okay. Then when we look at C, which is, so radical can say this becomes roots, and plumule becomes shoots. Shoots. Okay. Then seed coat. So when you talk about seed coat, what is the function of the seed coat? It offers protection for the seeds from the physical damage and pathogens. So seed coat offers protection. Okay, offers protection. Okay, so basically those are the answers. So please, if you have got questions, you can not hesitate to ask in the comment section. Just ask in the comment section. I'll be glad to respond to you. Otherwise, we come to question 27, which is, which statement best applies to organisms that produce asexually? Which statement best applies to organisms that reproduce asexually? A, offspring always grow to the same height. B, offspring are genetically identical. C, organisms only reproduce asexually during extreme conditions. D, reproduction happens by the fusion of haploid nuclei. Okay, so now we can go to definitions or description of these answers. Okay, let's talk about A. Offspring always grow to the same height. Is this correct? Okay. Well, asexual offspring are genetically identical. Their growth can still be varied due to environmental factors such as nutrient, light, and temperature. Okay, it's not always that they'll grow at the same height. If another plant is exposed to different nutrients or environment, then it will grow differently. The other point you should consider is genetics doesn't guarantee identical size or height. So if you have got some genetics, that doesn't mean if you are made of the same genetic materials, that does not mean you are also going to have the same identical. We are going to be same or identical in size and height. Doesn't mean like that. Okay, now let's look at B. So A is not correct. Now let's look at B. B, we are told offspring are genetically identical. Okay, offspring are genetically identical. Yeah, that one. Okay, asexual reproduction involves one parent. So offspring are clones. They have the same DNA. This is true for bacteria, many plants, and some animals like hydra. Okay, so this is also same to other plants. Okay, so this one is B. We can consider it to be correct for now. So let's look at C. C, we are told organism only reproduce asexually during extreme conditions. Is that true? Organism only reproduce asexually during extreme conditions. Is that even relevant to the question? Okay, some organisms like bacteria reproduce asexually all the time, not just under stress, but all the time they produce asexually. In fact, sexual reproduction is often triggered by extreme conditions, not increased genetic diversity. No. So C is not correct because it's not telling the truth, because there are some bacteria that reproduce asexually without being under stress. D, reproduction happened by the fusion of diploid nuclei. This describes sexual reproduction, not asexual. Okay, so that one is also not correct. Asexual reproduction does not involve fusion of gametes or nuclei. It is a single parent process, so there is no need of diffusion of or fusion of gametes. Okay, so it's just one cell. Okay, we come to question 28, which is as follows. The diagram shows how a large number of carrot plants can be produced from small pieces of carrots. Okay, so we can take time and start the diagram. So once we have studied the diagram, then we can come to the actual question. Okay, so when you're studying the diagram, you should pay attention to details of the diagrams. It's like root of carrot plant, pieces of carrot root are removed. Then we have got pieces of root, carrot root are grown into small plants. Then we have got each small plant grows into a new carrot plant. Okay, that's what is happening there. Then the actual question is, which of the following is correct for this method of plant production? Okay, so we have got asexual reproduction, genetic identical offspring, then genetically identical offspring. We have got cell division by mitosis. We have got cell division by meiosis. Okay, so now let's first describe these processes that we are talking about: asexual reproduction, genetic identical offspring. Okay, so when we talk about asexual reproduction is a type of reproduction where only one parent is involved and it produces offspring that are genetically identical to the parent. Okay, there are no fusion of gamete, no sperm and egg, and no mix of genetic materials. So just one single genetic material is involved. Okay, so that is it. So asexual reproduction will have genetic identical reproduction. Okay, so only one parent. Okay, so now let's talk about meiosis and mitosis. What do you understand by the word meiosis and mitosis? Okay, so let's talk about the difference of meiosis and mitosis. So please make sure you have a pen and a paper, like I said earlier on, so that you can get details. Okay, so let's say we have meiosis and mitosis. Now let's say we have mitosis and meiosis. So let me talk about features. Why purpose. Why is mitosis? So mitosis is growth, repair, and asexual reproduction. That is the purpose of mitosis, is growth, repair, asexual reproduction. Growth, repair, and asexual reproduction. What is the function of meiosis? Meiosis is sexual reproduction, gamete formation. Okay, number of division, here there is only one. Under mitosis is 1. Under meiosis is 2. Okay, 2 cells. Okay, daughter's cells, 2 identical cells. Under meiosis, now 2 identical cells under mitosis. 4 genetically different cells under meiosis. Okay, now let's talk about chromosome number. Same as parent, diploid. Okay, diploid. That is the number of chromosome. Then that is in mitosis. In meiosis, half of parent, that is diploid, haploid. That is chromosome number. In mitosis, same number as parent. In meiosis, half of the parent's number. So it's diploid, haploid. Genetic verification, none. They are clones. Okay, they are clones. They are very identical. Okay, genetic variation in meiosis. In mitosis, they are clones. They are none. No. But in meiosis, yes, due to crossover and assortment. Where it occurs, all body cells, asexual organism. Okay, for mitosis, it's all body cells. Okay, those asexual organism, it's everywhere of their body. There is asexual reproduction. Okay, there is mitosis, that is okay. In meiosis, that is in testes, ovaries, flowering plants, in anther and ovaries. So in human beings or animals, that is in testes and ovaries. In flowering plants, that is in anther and ovaries. Okay, now let's talk about why asexual reproduction uses mitosis. Binary fission, which is bacteria, cells split into 2 identical cells via mitosis. Okay, or via mitosis. Budding, yeast, nidra, new organism grow from parent using mitotic cell division. Okay, vegetative propagation, carrots, potatoes, they all use plant. They also benefit from mitosis to form new plants. Okay, like roots, stems, via mitosis. Spore formation in the fungi also uses mitosis. So spores are produced by mitosis in asexual cycle. Fragmentation, starfish, that is regeneration, parts involves in mitotic growth. So that is why mitosis happens. That is for repair, like I said earlier on. So when it comes to meiosis, meiosis is not involved. Meiosis is used in sexual reproduction to produce gametes, sperms and eggs, pollen and ovum. It produces chromosome number by half and produces genetic variation. It is not suitable for clone or rapid reproduction, which is what asexual reproduction needs. Now, when we come to the correct answers, or we look at which ones are correct answers, I don't know if you have gotten what I was explaining to you. So now we can come and choose the correct answer from these answers that we are given. So which one is the correct answer? So let's go on the question and look at the answer. So when we look at what is marked, we have A, which have asexual reproduction, that is one parent is involved, that is true. Genetically identical of offspring, that is also true. Then cell division by mitosis. Okay, so that is also What do you think? Is that also true? The cell division of the plants by mitosis. What did you say mitosis is? Okay. So mitosis, we said one parent. That is also true. Then when we look at cell division by meiosis, which is two involved, that is not true. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C. That is the correct answer. Okay, if you have got questions, please you can ask in the comment section. But basically, that's how you solve that one. We come to question 29. What is the function of the sepals of most flowers? What is the function of the sepal of most flowers? To dash. Okay, so first what we need to do is we need to understand what a sepal is. First, what is a sepal? Sepals are the small leaf-like structures that form the outermost part of a flower. Okay, they are usually green and surround the bud before it opens. So when the flower is being formed, what they are put in, okay, that is a sepal. That's where they develop from. That is a sepal before it even opens. Their main job is protection, especially during early development. Okay, so the question is, what is the function of the sepal of the most flowers? So we know that it's protection. So when you look at A, attracts insect, that is not true. These are green and they usually not attractive, so they are not the reason. That's not the function of the sepal to attract the insect. No. Okay. To attract the insect, that is the function of the petal. Okay, the petals attract the insects because they are colorful and they attract the insects. Okay, so when you come to B, which is produce pollen, no, that is not correct. Pollen is produced by anthers, which are part of stamens, which are male reproductive organs. So suppose they don't produce pollen. Protect the ovary, that is correct. They protect ovary, so C is correct. Then when you look at D, receive pollen. Do sepals receive pollen? No. Pollen is received by the stigma, which is the part of the carpel, female reproductive organ. Okay, that's why when we talk about pollination, we say this is the transfer of pollen from anther to stigma. Okay, so that is the definition of anther, of pollen, sorry. Okay, so pollen is produced by anther and received by stigma. Okay, so that is the correct answer. If you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section. We come to question 30, which is identify the method of pollination that occurs in flower. So the correct answer here will be D. Okay, wind pollination. Why am I saying D? We can see that the anther is outside. The anther is outside. So meaning when the wind is blowing, you will be carrying away pollen. So this will be the correct answer, D. Insect could have been your favorite answer if these anthers were inside the petals. Okay, now since they're outside the petals, that means wind will be blowing. And even if an insect came, it will just go direct inside the petals to go and suck the nectar. Meaning it may not even touch the anthers, and the pollen can't touch on the skin of the insect. Okay, so the correct answer is D. We come to question 31. During the menstrual cycle, hormone M is released in the body to stimulate the production of ova. This is then followed by the release of hormone N, which brings about ovulation. What are the names of hormones M and N? Okay, so first of all, let me describe what happens when menstruation is about to take place or when it is taking place. First, the key players in the menstruation cycle are follicle stimulating hormones, which are abbreviated as FSH. These they stimulate the development of ovarian follicle, which contains the ovary. Later on, luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation. This releases of a mature egg from the ovary. Okay, so follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the development of ovary. Then luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation, the release of mature egg from the egg. So estrogen helps thickening the uterus lining and regulate follicle stimulating hormones and luteinizing hormones. Progesterone maintains outer lining after ovulation. Okay, so the question is, what are the names of hormones M and N? So M, the hormone is released in the body to stimulate production of ovary, that is follicle stimulating hormone, which is on C here. And then N, which brings about ovulation. So what stimulates ovulation? That is luteinizing hormone. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C here. Okay, so you have heard what estrogen do and what progesterone do. Okay, so those are the correct answers. Okay, if you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section, but basically those are the correct answers. We come to question 32, which is, which of the following method of birth control involves prevention of ejaculation into the vagina? Okay, so prevention of ejaculation into the vagina. So when you look at ultrauterine device, this one doesn't prevent the ejaculation into the vagina. This one, it just prevents, okay, someone to get pregnant, although sperms will be introduced into the vagina. A man will ejaculate into the vagina, but what will happen is the sperm will be blocked. So it blocks only the sperm's movement. So that's all. Okay, so it doesn't stop the ejaculation of sperm into the vagina. Then the other one is rhythm method. Okay, so rhythm method is, which is also called fertility awareness, involves tracking the menstruation cycle and avoiding intercourse during fertile days. Okay, ejaculation may still occur during intercourse, just timed to avoid ovulation. So here again, ejaculation is involved, but you ejaculate in the vagina, but you time the period of ejaculating into the vagina. C, spermicide. Okay, so here ejaculating into the vagina takes place, but only that the sperms are killed by the spermicide. So ejaculation is involved. D, withdrawal method. So this withdrawal method is the correct answer. So as a man is about to ejaculate, he takes out the penis and he ejaculates from the outside. So the correct answer is D. Question 33. Which of the following characteristic is an example of continuous variation? Which of the following characteristic is an example of continuous variation? A, blood group. B, color of eyes. C, height. D, sex. Okay, first of all, let's talk about what is continuous variation. Continuous variation refers to trends that shows a range of values with no distinct categories. These trends are influenced by multiple genes and often environmental factors. Example, height, weight, and skin color. Okay, so these are examples of continuous variation. Now, if we can talk about continuous variation, let's talk about discontinuous variation. So, what is discontinuous variation? Discontinuous variation are trends that fall into clear-cut categories, usually controlled by a single gene or few genes. Example, blood group, sex, ability to roll tongue. I have seen people who can whistle by rolling the tongue, like making it second, then they can whistle with that. Okay, but not most of the people can do that. So when you talk about a blood group, we can see that blood group is not continuous variation. This is discontinuous variation. Okay, then when you look at the color of the eyes, okay, color of the eyes is also discontinuous variation. Okay, eye color is usually grouped into categories like blue, brown, green. Okay, well, genetic are complex. It is still treated as categorically not a smooth range. Okay, now when you look at height, height is continuous variation. Height is continuous variation. As I gave that example, as I was explaining on that, height is one of the characteristics or traits of continuous variation. Okay, so people can be any height with a wide range, influenced by many genes and nutrition, health, etc. No fixed categories, just a spectrum. Okay, so that's what you should understand. When you talk about sex, that is discontinuous variation, biologically categorized as male or female with rare intersex conditions. Okay, genetically determined by XX or XY chromosome. So the correct answer here is C, height. Which of the following characteristic is an example of continuous variation? The correct answer is C, height. We come to question 34, which is the diagram shows one of the stages of mitosis. Okay, so that is mitosis. We have chromatids there, separate and move to the opposite ends. Okay, so once we study the diagram and we take note of those things that are happening. So the question is, identify the stage of mitosis shown in the diagram. Okay, so let me talk about mitosis a bit. Mitosis is the process by which a cell divides to produce two identical daughter cells. It has 4 stages. Okay, so let's talk about these stages. Okay, A, anaphase. Okay, what is anaphase? This is the stage shown in the diagram. The sister chromatids are pulled apart by spindle fibers and move to opposite poles of the cell. So A is correct. Okay, it ensures each new cell gets an identical set of chromosomes. Now when you look at B, since we have identified A as the correct answer, we can talk about B in case the question comes different. B, that is metaphase. Okay, metaphase, this is chromosome line up at the center equator of the cell. Spindle fibers attached to the central meres, but no separation yet. The diagram shows the movement, not alignment. Okay, so the diagram is showing movement, not alignment. So that's why we feel A is correct. So during metaphase, the chromosomes are lined up. Okay, so if the diagram was lining up or showing lined up chromosome, then you could have gone with B. C, we talk about prophase. Okay, prophase, that is when chromosome condense and become visible. The nuclear envelope breaks down and spindle fibers begin to form. Chromatids are not yet moving. This is early stage. So that is the early stage. So when you talk about telophase, we are talking about chromatids have already reached the pores. Okay, new nuclear envelopes form and the cell prepares to split. Okay, which is also referred as cytokinesis. Okay, so the correct answer is A. I hope you have gotten my explanation on those stages. If you have got questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. We come to question 35. Question 35 is as follows. Which of the following organism can be classified as having a body which is not segmented but having 4 pairs of legs? Which of the following organism can be classified as having a body which is not segmented but have 4 pairs of legs. A, frog. B, insect. C, millipede. D, tick. Okay, so let's talk about A, which is frog. Okay, so frog, the body is not segmented. Okay, but the frog has got 2 pairs of legs. Okay, total 4. Now remember, in the question they are saying 4 pairs of legs. That means 8 legs. But the frog has got 2 pairs, which is 4 legs. Okay, it is classified as vertebrate or amphibian, not an arthropod. Okay, so that A is not the correct answer. Now let's look at insect. Insect, the body is segmented into head, thorax, and abdomen. Legs has 3 pairs of legs, which is 6 legs in total. Classification as arthropod. Okay, so in classification it is arthropod, yes. Okay, now when we look at C, which is millipedes, okay, body clearly segmented. Each segment has legs. How many legs does a millipede has? It has many pairs of legs, often more than 20 legs. Classification arthropods or myriapod. Is that an answer? No, because they are saying 4 pairs of legs. That one has got 20 legs, so maybe we can talk about 10 pairs. Okay, so now let's look at A, or let's look at D, which is tick. Not segmented. Okay, it's not segmented. It has fused body, head, thorax, and body, abdomen. Okay, are combined. So it is not segmented. All the 3, head, thorax, and abdomen, are combined. Legs, it has got 4 pairs of legs, total 8 legs. Okay, so the tick has got 8 legs. So it belongs to the arachnid group, like spiders and termites. Okay, so the correct answer is D. Okay, the correct answer is D. If you have got questions, you can ask in the comment section. But okay, we come to question 36, which is, which of the following is not a method of improving and retaining soil fertility? Which of the following is not a method of improving and retaining soil fertility? A, conservation farming. B, crop rotation. C, crop harvesting. D, weeding. Okay, so let's talk about A, crop conservation, conservation farming. Conservation farming. Conservation farming improves the soil. Okay, so improves and retains soil fertility. It involves techniques like minimum tillage, coverage cropping, crop rotation, mulching. Okay, so this helps prevent soil erosion, retaining moisture, and building organic matter. So B is one of the things that promotes, is one of the methods that improves and retains soil fertility. That is A, sorry. B, crop rotation. Crop rotation, as we know, it helps to return and improve soil fertility. So B is also one of those methods. Remember, the question is asking us, which of the following is not a method of improving and retaining soil fertility? Now, when we talk about crop harvesting, this is just the process of harvesting crop. It's not the method of improving soil or returning soil fertility. So crop harvesting is the correct answer. It does not improve or retain soil fertility. Then when you look at D, weeding. Okay, weeding also helps to retain soil fertility by removing other plants that can get unwanted plants that can also get the nutrient from the soil, hence reducing the fertility of the soil. So by removing that, we also retain soil fertility. So the correct answer is C, like I said earlier on. Okay, question 37 was as follows. The diagram shows the nitrogen cycle, so you can take time and study the diagrams. Okay, so before we answer even the actual question, we should understand the diagram and then identify what is taking place. Let's start with the point 1. Okay, parts that are labeled with 1. Let's start with point 1. So 1, what has happened, we have got nitrates here, which comes at this point, and then it becomes nitrogen. So what do we call the process of converting nitrates into nitrogen gas? So that is called the denitrification. Okay, so that is called the denitrification. So I don't know if my writing here will be enough. Let me try. So that's it, denitrification. Okay, denitrification. Okay, so step 1, that is denitrification. So when we come to 2, okay, nitrogen is converted into nitrate or ammonium. So nitrogen is converted in nitrate or nitrate. So that is called the nitrogen fixation. So 2, that is nitrogen fixation. Okay, so we want to complete the diagram before we answer the question. Okay, then we come to 3. So 3, that is nitrogen is converted into ammonium. Okay, nitrogen is converted into ammonium. What do we call that one? Okay, that one is also called the biological nitrogen fixation. Okay, that is biological nitrogen fixation. Sorry. Okay, so we come to step 3. Step 3, we are talking about converting protein and amino acid in plants into ammonium. Okay, so what is that called? That is called converting amino acids into ammonium is called ammonification. So that is called ammonification. Okay, ammonification. All right, so now we answer the question, which stages of the nitrogen cycle are naturally fixing bacteria important? Okay, in which stage of the nitrogen cycle are nitrogen fixing bacteria are important? So we have seen that nitrogen fixation, which happens at 2, as well as biological nitrogen fixation. Okay, so those 2 points. So 2 and 3. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. If you have got questions, please you can take time and ask in the comment section. Otherwise, those are the answers. That is the answer 2 and 3. Okay, question 38. Which of the following would be an effect of clearing large forest for agricultural purpose? Okay, which of the following is an effect of clearing a large forest for agricultural purpose? Okay, so A, we have got air pollution would increase. B, pollution would increase. Air pollution would increase. A, air pollution would decrease. B, air pollution will increase. C, the variety of species in the area would decrease. D, the variety of species in the area would increase. C, it will decrease. So what is the answer? Okay, so here when you look at the answers, we understand that when you are cutting down trees, air pollution would decrease. That is not true. Air pollution would increase. That is not true in an extent, although there will be a lot of carbon dioxide, but that is not true. Then see, the variety of species in an area would decrease, which is correct. When you're cutting trees, that means all the variety of species that you have cut won't be there, so will decrease. So C is the correct answer. Okay, let's come to question 19. Which human activity is likely to contribute most to global warming? A. Emission from burning fossil fuel. B. Non-biodegradable plastic in the ocean. C. Pollution due to insecticide. D. Water pollution by sewage. Okay, so which human activity is likely to contribute most to global warming? Okay, which one is going to have most effect? So emission from the burning fossil fuel. Burning coal, oil, and natural gases for electricity, transport, and industry reduces carbon dioxide and methane, the many greenhouse gases. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere, causing the greenhouse effect and the global warming. This is the largest contributors to climate change. So A is the correct answer because these are the biggest contributors of climate change or global warming. Okay, let's say climate change. So burning fuel stand out as the foremost contributor to greenhouse gas emission and consequently global warming. Okay, so B, why B is not correct, we are talking about non-biodegradable plastics in the ocean. Okay, plastics pollute oceans and harm marine life, but they do not increase significant greenhouse gases. Their impact is more on ecosystem than on global temperature. Okay, so when we talk about C, which is pollution due to insecticide, insecticide can contaminate soil and water and harm biodiversity. However, they don't significantly contribute to greenhouse gases emissions. Okay, D, water pollution by sewage. Sewage affects water quality, spread diseases, and harm aquatic life. It may release some ethane in anaerobic conditions, but its overall impact on global warming is minimal compared to fossil fuel. Okay, so what I'm saying is D contribute to global warming, but it's not in large quantity as it is to burning fossil fuel. Okay, we come to question 40. The following are the economic reasons for maintaining biodiversity except. Okay, so the following are the reasons for maintaining biodiversity except: A, deforestation; B, medicinal purpose; C, sources of food; D, tourism. Okay, so if we look at A, deforestation, okay, the following are the economic reasons for maintaining biodiversity except. Deforestation, this is the cutting down of trees. So it is not the reason for maintaining biodiversity. Deforestation means cutting down forests, which leads to loss of species and habitats, soil erosion, climate change. It reduces biodiversity, not support it. So deforestation is the correct answer because it is talking about the opposite of what we are talking about. Economically, it may provide short-term gains like timber, but it undermines long-term sustainability. Okay, so when you talk about medicinal purpose, which is B, medicinal purpose, economic reason is to maintain biodiversity. Many medicine come from plants, fungi, and microbes found in a biodiverse ecosystem. Example, the cancer drug, which is pancreaticel, comes from the Pacific yellow tree. Okay, preserving biodiversity ensures we can discover new drugs and maintain access to natural remedies. Okay, so B supports that. Okay, supports biodiversity. Now when you look at C, which is economic reason to maintain biodiversity, okay, which is the source of food. Okay, as source of food. Okay, so source of food is an economic reason for maintaining biodiversity. Okay, biodiversity provide a variety of crops, livestock, and world foods. It helps improve food security, protect against crop diseases, support sustainable agriculture. All those reasons. Okay. When it comes to D, which is tourism, we are saying economic reasons to maintain biodiversity is ecotourism, which depends on rich biodiversity. People travel to see wildlife, forest, coral reefs, e.g. etc. Okay, it generates income. Okay, it generates income, creates jobs, and supports conservation efforts. That is the purpose of tourism. Tourism, like in our country, Zambia, we benefit from tourism in national parks and game reserves. People come to see animals we have in national parks and game reserves. So the correct answer here is A, deforestation.